Lab 9.2 talks about whole versus part practice. Um, Introduction. The most important factor in the acquisition of motor skills is practice. Part practice involves breaking down a complex skills into its constituent parts, making it easier to learn. Schmitz and Lee 2020. This stands out in contrast to the whole practice, where the skill is practiced in its entirely from start to finish. The impact of part practice on learning depends on the specific task. It is most effective for tasks that are performed slowly and have separate non-interacting components. On the other hand, for tasks that are brief and follow specific set pattern, part practice is often not beneficial and may even impede the learning process. Generally, the more interdependent the components of a task, the less effective part of practice will be in aid in learning. So for the purpose and hypothesis, this lab provides the experiments of learning a task using part practice or whole practice. In this lab, we anticipate the part practice is more effective than whole practice. So for the method, there were 8 participants, different ages that volunteered for the study and gave consent. The materials, we needed 3 tennis balls, juggling beanbags, scarves, or plastic grocery bags. The experimental task required participants to throw and juggle 3 tennis balls under 2 different conditions. One condition is part practice, and the other condition is whole practice. So part 1, which is condition 1, is part practice. The participant will practice 4 tasks of each, which corresponds to of the steps. They'll do 8 trials in 4 blocks. Task 1 will be 1 ball tossed and catched. Task 2 will be 2 balls tossed and catched. Task 3 will be 3 balls tossed, dropped. And fourth task would be 3 balls juggling all in once. So one trial consists of 5 transfers from one hand to the other. Another trial consists of 5 transfers in which the ball in the right hand is tossed to the left and vice versa. Second ball is tossed as first ball reaches peak. One trial consists of 5 attempts on which all 3 balls are tossed in the correct order. The third ball is tossed as the second ball releases or reaches its peak. And then the fourth trial, which consists of juggling as long as possible until the ball is dropped. The experimenter will count and record the number of catches. For condition 2, it's just going to be juggling only for the 4 blocks of 8 trials. The participant will practice 3 ball juggling throughout the entire session. One trial consists of juggling as long as possible until a ball is dropped. The participant compares 8 trials in each of the 4 blocks. The experimenter will count and record the number of catches. Quality will not be recorded. And for the procedure, each person will perform 32 practice trials and an 8 trial retention test for the 3 ball juggling skill, each under a different condition. In tasks 1 to 3, the experimenter will keep track of the exchanges, assess the quality, and document the data. If a ball is dropped or the quality is notably low, note it as an error and proceed. In these tasks, the ball transfers must be distinct events. If the participant doesn't pause between transfers, consider it an error and restart the trial. So then we have our table 1, which is part and whole practices averages. Then graph 2 shows the average numbers of balls in retention to part practice. So then for our results, table 1, part practice versus whole practice averages. Part practice is 5.07 while whole practice is 6.17. The PV value was 0.0306604. This PV value, because it was less than 0.05, shows that there was a significance between the 2 groups. In graph 2, the average number of balls in retention to practice types. Part practice has an average number of 5.0, while whole practice was average number of 6.0. Then for our discussion, part practice and whole practice show the importance of learning how to juggle. It broke down each individual steps and motions for easier learning. Whole practice did do better than part practice. Data shows that whole practice did better than part practice. Average completed passes on whole and average completed 6.17 passes in retention, where part on average completed only 5.07 passes in retention. The more completed passes, the better the number was. Juggling as a continuous skill with a higher level of component interaction makes the whole practice more efficient for learning. Part practice is efficient for serial tasks that are to be performed very slowly and where the components in the sequence do not interact with each other. In general, the more the individual components of a task interact with each other, the more effective part practice will be for learning compared to the whole practice. Then we did have a reference with Schmitz and Lee, Motor Learning and Performance, 6th edition, 2020. So our hypothesis was wrong, where whole practice did way better than part practice.